We take you to the story now. Minister of Sport, Arts and Culture Zizi Kodwa will today deliver a keynote address at the Cuito Cuanavale battle commemoration in Freedom Park. The Cuban Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs, His Excellency Elio Rodríguez Perdomo, the Russian embassy delegates, as well as various liberation movement organizations are expected to attend and deliver messages of support. For more on the story now, we take you to our reporter, Khumalo, who now joins us for a live update. Kaya, thank you so much for your time. Perhaps just before we start the conversation fully, just give us a brief context as well as a background of the commemoration and its significance.
Well, that's right, Xolisi. This is one of the main battles in Southern Africa. So it's essentially really paved the way for democracy to be ushered in countries such as Namibia and South Africa. But also it happened in the midst of a very turbulent time, in the global context, in the midst of the Cold War, where there was a proxy war in Angola, where quite a number of liberation movements, the likes of ANC, SWAPO from Namibia, they were fighting in Angola. So the very main issue that they were fighting for was the issue of making sure that they protect, just the sovereignty of Angola, but the whole idea around communism in Africa as well. So that's why you had the South African Defense Force of the apartheid at the time. They're trying to make sure that, the communists are not able to move across, moving to Namibia and eventually to South Africa. So there's quite a lot of significance attached to this particular battle. So it was really important in so many ways. So that's why today it's really known as a Freedom Day, a Liberation Day for Southern Africa, because essentially it's really just led to the democratic dispensation to happen in Namibia and in South Africa as well. So that's a very symbolic area where the event is taking place. Right here at Freedom Park, that there's a wall of all the names of all the freedom fighters who fought against apartheid, and really just people who really just paid a supreme sacrifice, as it were. And today it's a day to acknowledge and really pay homage to these people, but also in the main showing a bit of solidarity to countries like Russia and Cuba, the countries really that stood with South Africa, Namibia, and many other countries were part of the frontline state. And really, all of this happens in the context also of quite a very turbulent time, where recently we saw the International Criminal Court issuing a warrant of arrest for the Russian Federation President Vladimir Putin. The Russian ambassador is also here. So during the course of the day, we're hoping to have a word or two with him just to understand how do they feel about this particular warrant of arrest, but also the Minister of Arts and Culture and Sport as well, representing the government of South Africa. And of course you do have the Cuban Deputy Foreign Affairs Minister, really just showing the significance of these countries and how really they stood together. You go back to the time where then Cuban leader Fidel Castro said it was quite important for the Cubans to come and be part of these conflicts, because it was part and parcel of Cuba's internationalist mission, where they were dealing with the imperial elements, and this is quite a very important time for the continent.
Now, Kaya, talk to us about some of the relations that all these countries that you just mentioned, your Cuba and South Africa, continue to enjoy to this day.
Well, very much so. Very cordial ties that South Africa do enjoy with Cuba and Russia, especially at this particular time, because all these countries, they do have quite a number of challenges. I mean, you look at the Cuban context from time to time through the Fidel Castro and Nelson Mandela initiative, where quite a significant number of South African doctors are being trained in Cuba, really speaking to the very fraternal ties that these two countries do enjoy, but also Russia, quite undoubtedly that very sound relationship that South Africa does enjoy with Russia, part and parcel of BRICS, just the influential economies. And this is going to be very important for South Africa. We know that during the course of this year, around August, South Africa is going to be hosting the BRICS summit, where also a number of African leaders will be invited, but also just zooming into South Africa-Angola relationship, a very important relationship. I mean, we do know that Angola is one of the oil-producing countries in the continent, so there's quite a lot that is expected. But at this point in time, we're expecting also to have a word or two with the CEO of Freedom Park, just to understand, because they call it a day of reflection. It's also about making sure that they acknowledge the role that was played by the frontline states and making sure that South Africa is a free country. So there's always quite a very important moment to try and understand this. But at this point in time, I'm just going to try and call the CEO of Freedom Park. She joins us now. There's, of course, Jane Mufamadi. So, CEO, you're joining us now at a very critical time where, once again, you acknowledge the role that was played by the freedom fighters. But Cuito Cuanavale, I mean, it's now 35 years. Tell us just briefly about the importance of today.
I think today is very important as we mark 35 years of the victory of the Battle of Cuito Cuanavale, because that is the victory that led to our freedom and democracy here in South Africa, but also in Namibia, but basically freeing the whole of SABC. So that is why today, especially the 23rd of March, is the day of reflection, or the SABC Liberation Day. So this is our Freedom Day as SABC. And it is because of this Battle of Cuito Cuanavale. But you'll know that here at Freedom Park, our mandate is to honor those who died for freedom and humanity. So this day is very important to us, because through commemorations like this, we remember where we come from. But the remembrance is so that we can draw lessons and build a better future for South Africa.
And quite a very massive role that you have as Freedom Park. I mean, about 185,000 names inscribed of the freedom fighters, but also, you know, in the present day South Africa now, the common challenges that do face us, you know, whether you look at poverty, you look at the socioeconomic challenges, what can you do as Freedom Park to try and highlight that message, that as we reflect on our history, but also tackling these challenges facing us?
I think for us, when we look at the current challenges, we are saying, let's come together as the continent, as SADC in particular, and build each other. Because that is why here we talk about international solidarity and the support that others gave us. I'm sure Africa is smart enough. We have produced the best intelligent minds in the world. In fact, most of the people serving in other countries in Europe are Africans by descent, the diaspora. So there is a lot that we can do, but I think we need to change our mindset, to think differently in terms of how do we address the challenges that are facing us on each day. These martyrs who are inscribed here on the wall did a lot. They sacrificed everything so that we can be free. And I think the honor that we can give them is to try and mitigate and address the challenges that we still face. We know it's not yet Uhuru. We have the political freedom. We can now vote, but there are still challenges of poverty that we still need to come together and address them.
All right, CEO, thank you so much indeed for your time. So, Nkolisi, that's the Freedom Park CEO, Jane Mufamadi, really just telling us about the context of today. So a great deal of importance attached to this day. But during the course of the day, we hope to speak to so many foreign guests as well who have been invited, because we do know of the significance of Cuito Cuanavale, but a turning point also for Southern Africa, but essentially for all the freedom-loving and the peace lovers across the continent.
Indeed, Kaya, perhaps just take us through the program and what we can expect to transpire throughout the course of the day before we let you go.
Well, it's quite a very jam-packed program, Kolisi. So there'll be a wreath-laying aspect. You can really see behind me where we are positioned. It's quite a vantage point right behind the wall of names that have been inscribed. So they'll be paying homage to all those who died in this particular conflict. I mean, there's quite also a number of speakers who are expected to also address the event, reflecting on the importance of today, especially from Cuba. Their Deputy Foreign Affairs Minister is in town here in Pretoria. He will also have an opportunity to express a word or two of a very important ally of South Africa, but also the Russian delegation as well is here. But the keynote address is going to be delivered by the Minister of Arts and Culture and Sports, Zizi Kodwa, to highlight, of course, the importance of this day, because it's just not, to all intents and purposes, an important day in South Africa, but the significance really transcends across the length and breadth of the region of SADC, where you talk about also the Liberation Day that is widely known across the regional bloc.
Kailihle Khumalo, we park it there for now. Thanks very much indeed for that update. That's SABC News reporter there, Kailihle Khumalo, giving us an update there out of Freedom Park.